All right, so this is a short demonstration on how to create a grid using a ruler, or if you don't have a ruler, some sort of other straight edge like using a book on your paper for when you do your drawing. Now, I've got a number of different rulers here, and they each have a number of different widths. Now in the classroom, I have very specific rulers with certain widths where I have one that's 1.5 inches wide and one that's 1 inch wide. Now, pretty much a typical ruler, if you just use the width of the ruler, you're going to come out with a fairly large square. So it kind of depends. Like this ruler here is fairly narrow. Like if I measure it with one of my other rulers, it is pretty much, this one's an inch in diameter here. It's 1 inch. Whereas this one here, this colored one, I have another ruler up to it. It's almost 1.5 inches in diameter. So if you've got a pretty wide one, you're definitely going to want to do this in a little bit different way. So we just line up our ruler. Now, if I line it to the edge, okay, there's a little extra there, so I have to look at this first mark where it starts at the 0, because rulers are always larger and longer than 12 inches. So I'm going to move this over, and I'm going to make a mark at every inch spot. So I'm going to make a mark inch at the 2, the 3, the 4, all the way down on every single number, like so. Okay, and I'll have a little bit of extra on this one. My paper is exactly 9 inches wide. Now I've got to do the same thing down at the bottom. One at the 2, the 3, the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 at the end. Okay, then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to sort of line it up here. Sometimes I'll take my pencil tip so I can stop it. And I've got to make sure that I can see, just barely see both of those marks. And I'm holding my ruler right in the middle, and I'm going to take my pencil and I'm holding it near the end of the pencil. Some of you, if you had Art 1, remember this, where it makes it so I don't have much pressure. I want to have a light grid, so I'm going to, move my ruler up a little bit. Okay, and I'm just going to pull down and pull against the ruler for my one line. Okay, and it's nice and light. It's almost hard to see. And I'm going to do the next one. So my nice light lines. Okay, I'm going to go all the way across, and afterwards I'll turn my paper around this way, and I'll do the exact same thing, where I measure, make a mark at every number, which is every inch, on the top and on the bottom, and then I'll line it up and draw my line in between. Do not try just doing the marks on one side and then trying to eyeball it, because it won't work. You'll have to start all over again. And you don't want to waste paper, because I'm not sure how much paper you have at home. Now, if you don't have a ruler, hopefully people do, but if you don't have one, I've kind of come up with another way of using this. You can just use a straight edge. So I've got here a nice big book. You know, it's got a nice straight edge there, so I can use this edge to draw my lines. Now I have a straight edge to draw my lines. The problem is that how am I going to measure my squares? So this is a little bit more challenging. So on my paper, okay, I kind of have to make marks, so I'm going to sort of eyeball it. And I'm just going to kind of make a mark here, and I'm going to try to make the same distance as best as I can. And I'm just kind of doing it lightly, just sort of eyeballing it. You know, worst case thing that happens, I just go back and I erase these little marks on the end. That's not really going to mess up my drawing, because it's just on the end, and I can try again. Okay, once you kind of have, and I do them lightly at first, then kind of go back and make them a little darker. Now the problem is, normally I would have marks down here as well. Well, pretty much there's a small chance that I'm actually going to get the exact same width between these. I'm not going to have these spaced out exactly how I did it up here. It's going to be pretty hard to do. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to take my straight edge. I'm going to make this pretty dark so you can see it. Normally, you wouldn't want yours really dark. So you can see that nice dark mark. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to line up my book on that mark. Now, what I have to do is I have to sort of take a look at, does this edge look parallel to this edge? And of course, parallel lines we know never meet, so we have to kind of eyeball it. So I'm going to say, all right, so like right now, okay, that's definitely not the case because this is narrower here than here. This is wider and it becomes more narrow. So I'm going to just kind of push it a little bit until it looks about as close as I can, and then I'm going to draw my line. Okay. Okay, that one looked pretty good. All right. And I'm going to do it again. So this time I'll line that up, make my mark dark so you can see it. Okay, I'll line it up. And I've got to try to make, now you can see that this is wider here and a little more narrow here. So I'm just going to bring it in until it looks like that's pretty darn close. Okay. Now, this is a little bit more narrow than this. Okay, but again, this is just a guide too. So as you're drawing, you know, you can sort of figure out, well, if my line might look a little bit off, but it's going to give it a pretty darn close in terms of like the direction and where the line is actually looks on your photograph. Okay, so even though these might not be 100% perfect, it'll still work pretty well. Even my rulers in the classroom, they get a little bit off, and so they get a little bit funky. Okay, so that's two ways in which you can create your grid on your paper. And remember, draw light lines, hold the pencil near the end here so you can't press very hard, because eventually we're going to have to erase your lines in your drawing.